Yes, I'm sorry about the echo. So we are here today with Sara Calvosa Olson, the amazing author of this gorgeous cookbook, which I'm going to ask her to pronounce the name of
It's
properly.
it's Chími Nu'am. It means let's eat in Karuk.
Very nice. So thank you so much, because I definitely would have messed that up. I am going to be adding to our YouTube channel a playlist of some pronunciations from some of the Native American tribes that we have, anything I can find, because, I think it's important to be able to pronounce things properly and correctly. So I'm going to add some of that. Thank you so much for pronouncing that. And it is an amazing book, I have to tell you. I'm one of those people who reads a cookbook cover to cover, and I've been reading this one. It is amazing. So one of the things that I noted about the book is how you've organized it by season. And I really love that idea. Sarah really takes us through a journey in her book. This is Native California Foodways for the Contemporary Kitchen. And every season has recipes in every season, but also foraging tips. So talk to me a little bit about the inspiration of the book, and and why you did that, like separating it by seasons. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's because it's very traditional, first of all, but also, I mean, the Karuk New Year begins in the fall, and it is such an exciting time. We're gathering, we're getting together, we're feasting, and there's ceremony and fish, and it's a really exciting time. So for me, when I knew that I was going to lay this out seasonally, so I wanted to start at the beginning of our new year. So especially with acorns, which is really foundational to a lot of our foodways. And I wrote this book because this is how I grew up eating uh, with a few different foodways. My mother is Karuk, and she has lived in the same area as her ancestors since time immemorial. And the and her life ways are very much tied to a almost like a disconnected sort of version of traditional foodways. She's a gatherer, but she's also an incredible gardener. And my dad would hunt, but he is from southern Italy, so he brought his type of foodways and the struggle foods that he grew up with. And my mother had already had this kind of adaptive idea of foods and nutrition, and combined that with the also the commodity box distributions that we would all go and get. And those commodity boxes are filled with agriculture surplus foods, and we would take those home and combine these foodways to make really familiar foods, but they may have different ingredients in them. So I grew up with that sort of, I guess, creative lens with food and foodways, and I brought that to my own family as well. So this is really a compendium of all of those recipes from when I was young all the way up until when my sons were teenagers. Mm-hmm.
Well, wow, it's an incredible book, and the recipes are fantastic, by the way. And you were talking about acorns. It's funny. Every day I walk my dog on the trails out here in the Southern California hills, and so I just happened to see, the live oaks are dropping tons of acorn these days. So I grabbed some of these. I was really inspired by the acorn flour baking, and you have in the book the process to create your own acorn flour.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, talk about extra. That is so, I can't even believe how difficult and time consuming that must be to do.
It is. It's time consuming, but it is the best kind of time consuming. It's the best kind of time that we can spend. And especially as a family, because for us, gathering is so much more than just going to pick up the acorns and going to get the acorns. It's so much more than that. It informs so much of our cultural lifeways, our storytelling, science, and art, how we approach forestry and environmental issues, our advocacy. It affects everything for us. So, yes, it is a lot, but it is a life way. So it's meant to be incorporated into your life in ways that should feel really natural and organic.
It's pretty incredible. I did, by the way, for anybody buying the book and looking for acorn flour, I did find a source that makes acorn flour. They are the Thousand Oaks Acorn Company. If you're like, oh my gosh, that just sounds like too much for me, or I can't afford it. I don't have acorns around me, although everyone has acorns of some sort everywhere in the United States, I think. Then there is an option out there that I did find. The only one I found, by the way. And so, but I mean, the recipes. I'm just going to show you the three sisters. Oops, a little bit like rubbing your head. It's like just beautiful photography, gorgeous recipes, absolutely beautiful. And what I love is that you are kind of bringing these really interesting ingredients from foraging. Like I was just looking at the tree tip syrup. And I'm like, these are things that we can all do that none of us do. And so you're introducing us to foraging and using these ingredients in our own kitchen and our own cooking, but also incorporating modern ingredients and things that we all have in our household that we might need to cook with. It's just a really lovely, lovely book. I happen to make the tepary bean soup because I was feeling like I need a little comfort today, and this is a very comforting soup. And I don't know if anybody can see that. It's a little tough with the light in here, but it's just full of amazing, yummy ingredients. And it is these tepary beans. I use the white tepary beans. It'll be really good with brown. I just reached for white today, but I think it would also be great with the brown. And it's just so lovely. It is so lovely. What a great soup. Fantastic recipe. I highly recommend everyone pick up the book. It is, the link, by the way, is below in the comments. So definitely take a look at that and click on the link, get the book. It's a beautiful book. Really wonderful cookbook to add to your collection. I wanted to ask about this recipe. Tell me a little bit about this one.
So that one is a little bit of like an inside joke to my mother, because when I was little, she had a lot of, I believe, the Better Homes and Gardens cookbooks, the whole series. And I think this was on the cover of one of those particular cookbooks. And it was this sandwich cake. And I was obsessed with the sandwich cake. And it just looked like a cake, but I knew that it was a savory sandwich. So I was always obsessed with it. I wanted my mom to make it all the time. And she was like, that's ridiculous. We're never going to do it. So of course, like when I had my own kids, I wanted to mess around with whatever, I'm like, I'm an adult. I can make a sandwich cake if I want to. So, and I tried to, figure out what that would look like and what my fillings would be and how I would decorate it. And yeah, and so it's kind of become one of our little holiday traditions to have this silly sandwich cake in there, but they're really wonderful. So, I mean, they're a blast. I think they're super fun and really festive. And it's also the most colorful way. It's just very much expressive of the way that I feel about our foods. And these are our traditional foods. These are our little relatives. I want them to be reflective of how beautiful and how grateful I am that we have them in our lives. So when we're eating these foods, I want them to be an expression of us at our best and how grateful we are for how much they nourish us. And I did want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about foraging, because I don't necessarily want people to go into this with a foraging mindset. And there is a difference between being a forager and a gatherer. And the difference is that a gatherer doesn't just go one time and get something. A gatherer is there in service of that relative and the broader ecosystem. You're there, you're observing, you're there more for service. And when you are gathering, you're also not just gathering for yourself, you're gathering for your community. And you're gathering for all of the things that will happen throughout the year, like perhaps your neighbor has a baby, or you have a grieving period to support a family through, and as a community we come together to support those families for all the different things, weddings, ceremonies. So when you're gathering, you're thinking of the ways that you will be able to be generous throughout the year to your community as well. And also you're fighting and advocating for these ecosystems as if they were our people. And there's a lot there where, language reclamation, all of that is included in being a gatherer. It's not just going to get the thing and leaving. And foraging is a very extractive premise, in that foragers don't live necessarily in the areas where they're going to gather. And then when they do gather, they bring it back to other areas and commodify it and sell it. And none of those dollars stay in our tribal communities, even though we're the ones out there every season. All of our people are all over the place. And to great personal danger, even, because it's still criminalized to practice our traditional land-based like science and gathering and hunting and all of that. So it's difficult. And then to have foragers maybe come up and gather and then come back to the Bay Area where I am and sell those down here to all of the chefs and the fancy restaurants, but none of that money stays in our community. And we still do have a lot of subsistence gatherers that rely on these foods. We live rurally, very rurally. And oftentimes they aren't able to get to a store, or stores hours away, or they don't have a ride, or they are disabled. There's a lot of reasons. So having these foods available to gather are often very much survival foods. And it can be frustrating when we are trying to, cultivate and regrow all of these things, and then people are coming in and just sort of taking them away. So I would recommend that if you are interested in being a gatherer, one of the easiest ways you can kind of shift a foraging practice is to communicate with the tribal people whose land you're on or wanting to gather on. Call up and ask if there are any places that are off limits, any places that they're currently working on, or places that are traditional gathering grounds, or for basket weavers and they don't want any human disturbance going through the area if they're reseeding, things like that. Just call and ask if there's places that are off limits, places that you might prefer for you to go. Maybe there are places that do need human disturbance, and they can say, please go here, and while you're out there, will you pull any of these things that you see, or something like that. You can actually be in community that way, and we can all work toward the same goal. So you're putting in a little reciprocity and providing the service so that the food will, like, you are feeding the food so that the food will feed you. But you've got to put in the first step of service. So it starts with us. And yeah, there's many things. Or if you're a really good forager and you've been doing it for a long time and have a lot of knowledge, offer to take our kids out and help them reclaim some of this knowledge. Take them out gathering and interact with them, center their experience and their stories, and show them how to safely gather and how to be a good gatherer. And I know that a lot of mushroom foragers know how to gather properly. They know the best way to ensure that the mycelium mats stay healthy and intact. So helping our kids reclaim that knowledge, really helpful. Or offering whatever you gather to our elders and say, do you have any elders that could use these foods, and I'll share them with you. And that's how you can kind of shift a practice that obviously you feel called to. People feel called to be foragers. They want to be out there, but it isn't a singular, it's not transactional like that necessarily, or it's not, that's extractive. It needs to be more service-based and reciprocal.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit about growing up Karuk and what that was like, and what that community is right now and what it was before?
Hmm. Well, okay. So the Karuk people are from the Klamath River, and the Klamath River to the confluence of the Salmon River, and up in the Marble Mountains. I don't know if you're familiar with Northern California, but really stunning terrain up there. A lot of timber, a lot of natural resources, a lot of water, and we were had our first contact relatively late. I believe it was 1849 or 1850 when we had first contact for us. So in a very short period of time, though, we had an influx of gold mining and people that were blowing up the sides of the cliff sides on the side of the river and the creeks and streams, and completely altering the landscape in the search for gold. And a lot of diseases with them that brought a lot of grief and mourning into our communities. Then along came the homesteaders that were coming there to settle land and to be, getting acreage, and that with the agreement that they would be fighting off the native people that were there with the government, the state of California. So then we've got the homesteaders and land being sectioned away from us and being put onto a reservation. And then there's the timber industries, very extractive timber industries, clear cutting up there, which really did a lot of irreparable harm to our aquaculture and our disaster preparedness, because a lot of slides happen everywhere and it can block the roads in the wintertime, which again creates some more food insecurity. So we've got the timber, then we had the fish wars, which is really where I came in the 70s, and the kind of the end of the fish wars, where we had commercial overharvesting and too many water diversions to agriculture at the top of the Klamath. And I mean, they're growing potatoes and stuff up there, which I mean, and horseradish, and the diversions caused less water to be in the creeks and streams. The waters were too warm, and it created a fish kill where all of the fish died. Like 30,000 fish died in one day, and it was devastating. So we went all the way to the Supreme Court to ratify our fishing rights. And so then from there, we are now, in that post era in my lifetime, we have been still working to take the dams down, and it's been really successful to take down some of those dams on the Klamath. And we have fish that are swimming up into areas of the Klamath that they haven't been in 100 years, and they are ready to come home, which shows there is the resilience there. The resilience, it wants to be in balance. It wants to be there. It knows like this is the right way for us to be in balance. So, and then, but to be fair, there still is a lot of agriculture diversion at the top of the Klamath. And it causes really low water levels, which makes it too hot. It causes poisonous algae to grow, and it's dangerous for people and dogs and fish. So it's been challenging. And really, if you think about the diversions and the water that's going to water these crops that are potatoes and horseradish, like when you think about it, like calories, one spring run good spring run of salmon, and the Klamath was the third largest salmon run in the United States. One good run of salmon for the year would feed more people than they will ever grow food for in a lifetime up there. So just thinking about it from the economy of resources, it just doesn't make any sense anyway. So it's challenging, and that's the next phase, is to keep moving in that direction and to keep fighting for water. So yeah, that's kind of the picture now, and that's where we're at, is that we are all have evolved into picking up the mantle and running with it beyond our parents and our aunties and uncles and grandparents and stuff.
I feel like we are lucky here in California to have tribes like yours that are still active and together and on their ancestral land and fighting for it. So much of the United States, unfortunately, where I'm from in Ohio, there are no Native Americans left. They relocated all of them out of Ohio, and most all of those tribes died out. So there are a lot of places in the United States that have no longer any indigenous population at all, because of the actions of people before us. So we're really
here. They still live. They're still here though. Like those Native people that were from Ohio are still here. Their relatives and their descendants are still here, and they still are able. Like that's why land back is so important. And bringing indigenous people back to the land. It's like, and then bringing the land back to where it's supposed to be. Land back isn't necessarily always about giving the land to somebody, but it's about bringing our land back, bringing the whole land back, and therefore in order to the people back as well. So if you have healthy land, you have healthy people, and the cycle is complete. So they can still come back. It just has to be a priority.
Yeah, we're lucky that at least we still have it here in California. So I feel very lucky to live here, to be honest, to be able to even have this opportunity to have your community working so hard for the land. It's amazing, and I think that we can all learn a lot from it. So I'm not going to keep everybody forever. It's been long, but the book is amazing. Everybody's just got to pick up the cookbook, and you use in it a lot of ingredients that we have in the store. So you can click the link below also and get the ingredients. Fill your pantry with wonderful indigenous ingredients that are grown and owned by indigenous people. So we have a lot of Native American owned products, including the tepary beans from Ramona Farms that you have in your book. And we love working with Ramona Farms. There's also, things from Sacred Hills, which is also here in California. We work with, Dave Smoke McCluskey, who's the Mohawk chef. So we have his hominy in the store. There are a lot of things in the store, and they're in the tribal area. And when you're doing that, you're supporting, tribes that this is their ingredients, and they own these. So make sure you support that. And I try and not support non-native people growing indigenous ingredients, because I think that this is our duty. If we're going to eat these products and we're going to use them and consume them, to make sure that the money is going back to where it belongs. The people that grew it and cared for it and brought it to us in the first place. So I hope that you will also support all of the indigenous movements, and you'll support by buying the book, buying ingredients from indigenous groups, and seek out more information and become educated. It's all great. Oh, and I wanted to mention I am wearing my Three Sisters necklace from Cherokee Copper, my friend Lisa. That is a Native American owned jewelry company, and we're actually doing a giveaway with them this week. So if you are on our email list, join our email list now. You'll get an email about it, and if you go to our website, you'll be able to join the giveaway that we're having, and you might win a gift certificate so you can buy yourself your own Three Sisters necklace, which I really love. Thank you all, and have a lovely day, and enjoy some nice warm tepary bean soup. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Yotwa.